Imagine for a moment that you're in a space where time doesn't exist, where matter falls apart and reality dissolves into a vast ocean of peace. Now, imagine that, in this state, you're completely imperturbable. No word, look or circumstance around you can touch it or shake it. This feeling of deep serenity, of connection to something bigger than yourself, is what many people report after experiences that defy the very definition of life and death. A state where life and death intertwine and the soul expands beyond the borders of the body. Have you ever wondered what happens after death? How would it be to experience this limit between life and death? These are questions that have fascinated humanity for millennia, and many people, when they came across almost death situations, have returned with reports that have forever changed the way we understand human existence. Today, we're going to explore these experiences, what they teach us about life, death, and spirituality, and how they can help us achieve an imperturbable inner peace, even in adversity times. Let us look closer to the journey of Jacobo Grinberg, a scholar and Mexican researcher who dedicated his life to the understanding of the power of the human mind and his connection to the spirit world. Grinberg, over his career, explored how the mind can influence reality, and how this influence isn't just a matter of positive thinking or meditation, but of a deep connection with what we call another side of life. He was one of the great pioneers exploring the connection between the human mind and the altered states of consciousness, especially those who had near-death experiences. Grinberg believed that these experiences are not just an answer from the brain to extreme situations, but a true spiritual experience, which reveals us to our true nature and connects us to something much bigger than ourselves. Through his research, he concluded that consciousness is not limited to the physical body, and that when entering high states of consciousness, we can access dimensions of reality that are invisible to our eyes. He also suggested that people who experience clinical death and return bring back a wider and deeper perception of life, as if they had touched something infinite and transcendental. These almost death reports often involve feelings of immense peace, the feeling of being floating or traveling through a tunnel of light, and even encounters with spiritual beings, like guides or deceased loved ones. Although scientific explanations for these experiences variate, the truth is that many people report a deep transformation after passing through these experiences. What initially seems an imminent death experience often reveals itself as an opportunity of spiritual rebirth. Now, if you reflect on these reports, an important question comes up. What can we learn from all this for our everyday life? The key, perhaps, is how we deal with fear, pain, and challenging situations. Instead of letting us drag through a cycle of emotional and physical reactions, as we often do, the reports of people who returned from these experiences show us that it is possible to transcend this cycle and find a lasting inner peace. The practice of blocking emotionally and spiritually doesn't involve walking away from the world or ignoring the difficulties of life. On the contrary, it's about changing the way we react to what happens around us. When we were able to develop a deep connection with our inner, when we were able to understand the impermanence of life and death, and when we began to live with the consciousness that we are connected to something much bigger, we were able to see the challenging situations in a different way. Now, I invite you to take a brief break and reflect. How do you react before a difficult time? When something happens that messes with your emotions or your peace, do you feel shaken up? Or can you keep a sense of balance and serenity? And most importantly, is it possible to achieve this serenity even in the most difficult situations of life? Today, I want to invite you to board on this journey of self-knowing and transformation. Over this video, we're going to explore simple and effective practices that can help cultivate this inner peace without the need for years of meditation or complex teachings. It all starts with the willingness to connect with yourself, to look inside and find the strength that already lies inside. Before we continue, I ask you not to forget to sign up for the canal, leave a like, comment down, and share this video with friends who can benefit from that content. What we're going to reveal here has the power to transform the way you look, not only life, but also your relationship with success, spiritual wealth, and even material. And stay tuned, because in the next few minutes we're going to dive deeper into this fascinating theme and share surprising revelations. Now that we begin to explore the connection between life, death, and spirituality, we will advance deeper into this mystery, questioning what really happens when life seems to escape for a moment. The near-death experiences are phenomena that intrigues not only scientists, but also spiritualists and philosophers. They are described as moments when a person feels their soul to dismiss from the physical body, through a tunnel, being involved by an intense light, or even finding loved ones already dead. It seems impossible that, in the midst of anguish and imminent death, a person can experience a sense of unconditional peace. However, the EQM reports contradict exactly what we would expect from this situation. Many people who have been through these experiences talk about a sense of universal love, unit with everything there is. And often, they return with a new vision of life, about death, and about our existential purpose. And here comes a deep question. Can we connect with this sense of peace and serenity without need to go through a near-death experience? The good news is yes. We don't need to wait a moment of crisis to access this high state of consciousness. Spirituality, meditation, and practices like conscious breathing can help us get in touch with this place of inner peace, even without having an extreme experience like an EQM. In many spiritual teachings, like the ones we found in Buddhism and in Christian tradition, there is an emphasis in the importance of presence at the moment. Buddhism, for example, talks about the practice of full attention, where we become completely aware of what's happening in our mind, body, and around us, without judgments or resistance. This practice helps us transcend the attachment to suffering and desire, teaching us to live with more compassion and understanding. Curiously, some biblical passages also offer us similar teachings. Jesus, for example, spoke about the importance of trusting God and leaving our concerns in the hands of the Father. He taught us that when we seek this full trust, we would find peace, even in times of great tribulation. Not eager for anything, says a passage in Philippians, but in everything for prayer and plea, with thanksgiving, be known to your petitions before God. In essence, the message is clear. Peace doesn't come from outside circumstances, but from an internal state of trust and delivery. Now imagine for a moment that you are able to access this inner peace easily. Imagine being able to look at the chaos around you and, instead of feeling shaken up, feel calm and centered. It's not something out of reach. In fact, many people who have almost death experiences often talk about the importance of not fear, which comes after death, because they understand death is not the end, but a transition to something greater. This understanding of death and life as parts of a whole allows us to deal better with daily challenges. Death, often seen as the great enemy of life, is actually a reflection of impermanence of everything we know. What we realize as solid and permanent actually is always changing. Our emotions, our external situations, and even our bodies are constantly transformation. Embracing this impermanence can be liberating, for it allows us to live with more freedom and less fear. There's something very powerful in the idea that what we see around us is, in many ways, a projection of what we carry internally. This is a widely approached concept in several spiritual traditions, like Buddhism and even in Western philosophies. What we realize in the outside world is often a reflection of our thoughts, emotions, and deeper beliefs. When we change internally, we can transform what we see around us. This leads us to the fundamental question: how can we practice this internal transformation? How can we cultivate an inner peace that allows us to sail through the storms of life with serenity? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with an important step: the practice of self-observing. Self-observation is the ability to observe our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without judgment. That doesn't mean repressing or ignoring our reactions, but simply taking consciousness from them and understand what they reveal to us about ourselves. When we start observing ourselves, we realize patterns of thought and behaviors that may be limiting us or bringing us unnecessary suffering. Imagine a moment when you feel angry, anxious, or overloaded. Instead of letting yourself consume by these emotions, you can take a step back and observe what's happening inside you. Ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What's causing me this emotional reaction? Many times, our emotions are automatic reactions to thoughts or deeply rooted beliefs. By taking consciousness of that, we can begin to change the way we react, cultivating a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. This conscious observation practice is something that Jacobo Grinberg also explored in his research. For him, the key to a more balanced and spiritual life was in the deep connection to our inner being. He believed that when we connect with our true essence, we can access an unlimited source of peace, wisdom, and love. This connection isn't something that lies outside of us, but inside, in our own field of consciousness. So, along this video, I invite you to reflect. What can you do today to begin to connect with your inner essence? What practices or habits can you incorporate your life to cultivate more peace, love, and understanding? The answer can be simpler than you imagine. Many times, the key to transformation is at our disposal to look inside, to observe, to accept, and to change. Now, if you're liking what you're learning, don't forget to sign up on the canal, leave a like, and share this video with other people who can also benefit from that knowledge. In the next segment, we will explore more deeply, like the teachings of spiritual figures like Buddhist masters and Christian figures, better help us understand the process of transformation inside. Now, while we continue to deepen our reflection on the transforming power of consciousness, we need to consider the idea that the way we deal with life and death can be, in fact, the key to a more full and serene existence. And here, a fundamental question comes. How can we really integrate the notion of impermanence in our day-by-day so that we can live with more presence and balance? The answer is not simply to accept death as an inevitable fact, but to understand that death somehow is already part of life. This understanding can be a starting point for our inner peace, for we accept this transitority. We can free ourselves from fear and automatic reactions he provoke. In several cultures, including Buddhism, the recognition of impermanence is seen as an essential path to spiritual awakening. The Buddha, in his teachings, described suffering as a direct consequence of attachment to things that are temporary. When we cling to ideas, people, or situations, we create a cycle of suffering because inevitably these things change or lose. But Buddha also taught that the release of suffering comes when we accept the impermanence and we dismiss from what we cannot control. The detachment doesn't mean to abandon life or stop caring about people and events around us. On the contrary, it's about living with the full consciousness that everything is in constant flow. And when we accept this fluidity, we become more capable of living with compassion, wisdom, and mainly peace. The attachment generates anxiety and fear, for the human mind fears the unknown, which is inevitable, which is beyond its control. And this fear, often, is what prevents us from experiencing true inner freedom. When you think about how you deal with your own concerns or challenges, you realize if you're trapped to hard expectations or resistance to what's happening. Are you perhaps trying to control the uncontrollable? And if instead, you could just accept what is, without getting lost in judgments or us and if, but just experiencing the moment as it is. The reports of EQM, which describe the feeling of deep peace, often report the experience of leaving behind this control weight. When people arrive at the moment of almost death, they often have the feeling that everything they know and love will be left behind. However, once on the other side, people describe a feeling of unconditional peace, a state of unity with the universe. They no longer feel the need to control because they understand that true peace is in acceptance. In one of those stories, a person who had an almost death experience stated that by crossing the tunnel of light, didn't feel afraid. How could you expect from an imminent death situation? On the contrary, she described a feeling of deep love and belonging, as if she had returned to a home. This feeling of belonging to the universe is something that transcends common human understanding. And this is a fundamental teaching that we can bring to our everyday life. When we accept our connection to something bigger than ourselves, when we understand that we are interconnected to all things, we cease to live in a state of resistance and we go to live with trust and serenity. Have you ever stopped to think about how you could live your life with more confidence? How could I put aside the fear of losing control and trusting the internal wisdom that we all possess? The near-death experiences show that true freedom and peace come from a state of surrender to life as it is. We're not talking about resignation, but a deep acceptance of the natural flow of existence. This flow is also approached in similar ways in Christianity. The Bible, for example, talks about the importance of trusting God at all times, even in the situations of affliction. In several passages, as in Matthew 6:34, it is said, "Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will bring your own concerns. Just every day your own evil." Here the central message is to live with full confidence, without being consumed by the anxieties of the future. The present moment is all we have, and it's in Him we can find peace. Instead of trying to control what we can't control, we're invited to trust something bigger than us. Why is that important? Because when we trust, when we deliver our mind and heart to the peace of the present moment, we begin to realize life in a completely new way. Instead of reacting to every external stimulus, we begin to respond in a more balanced and serene way. And that's how we can create a deeper connection with our essence, with the divine, and with the power of mind to transform our reality. Now I bring an important reflection. Are you living your life with this full trust? Or are you constantly reacting to external stimuli, being dragged by emotions and fear? And if instead you could cultivate this deep peace feeling, knowing that life and death are two sides of the same coin, and that deep down are we all connected to something eternal and unchangeable? Over this video, we're exploring not only the near-death experiences, but also the deep teachings that these experiences bring us. As Jacobo Grinberg suggested, the human mind has an immense power to shape reality. When we connect with this power, we can transcend the duality between life and death, seeing both as parts of a larger spiritual evolution. In this process of connection with our true essence, the mind is the key. The way we think, what we feel, and the beliefs we sustain our reality. And that's something powerful. If we can change our relationship with the inner world, with our thoughts and emotions, we can literally change our experience of life. And by changing our internal experience, we change the way we interact with the world around us. If you're feeling that these ideas are resonating with you, and you want to learn more about how to cultivate this inner peace, how to connect with your true essence, and how to transform your reality, don't stop signing up to leave your like and share this video with whom you think you can benefit from this journey of self-knowing. In the next segment, we'll deepen this relationship between mind and reality, and how you can apply these practices in your own life. As we come to the end of this journey, we reflect on everything we've learned so far. We've been through deep teachings about how near-death experience can connect us with an imperturbable inner peace, and how this serenity isn't something far away, but something within reach of us all. As we saw, we don't need to wait for an extreme experience to access this peace. She's available every moment on our own conscience. What we need to do is learn to look inside and recognize the deep truth that exists inside ourselves. The reality we experience is ultimately a projection of our beliefs, thoughts, and more intimate emotions. When we change the way we relate to these beliefs and with our own mind, we are able to transform our perception of life and the world around us. The great mystery, which both near-death experiences and spiritual teachings seek to reveal, is that we're all connected to something bigger than our individuality. Death, unlike what we imagine, is not an end, but a transition to something eternal. It is possible to live this truth now, at this present moment. By embracing the impermanence and the transitority of life, we can free ourselves from fear and anxiety that often imprison us. This is the power that almost death experiences offer us, the ability to see life in a broader, more compassionate way, and above all, more serene. Jacobo Grinberg, with his research on the mind and consciousness, has shown us that there is a great power in our ability to shape reality through what we believe and what we are willing to experience internally. He believed that when we reached elevated states of consciousness, we could transcend the limitations of the physical world and connect us with broader dimensions of existence. This connection is not something restricted to few chosen or extreme experiences, but something that everyone can experience from the moment we decided to contact our true essence. And we're not alone on this path. Millennial teachings, both Buddhism and Christian, guide us toward a more connected, more full, and more conscious. The Buddha taught that the key to freedom of suffering is in acceptance of impermanence and in the practice of detachment. He invited us to realize that true peace comes when we stop fighting what it is and we start living with the full acceptance of life as it presents. On the other hand, the Christian teachings, with their passages that talk about trusting God and living with faith, show us that peace is not in control, but in delivery. The delivery to divine will, trust in a greater plan, is what brings true serenity, regardless of the external circumstances. Both spiritual traditions invite us to overcome fear and find peace in the present, trust and acceptance. And that's exactly what we can apply in our lives every day. We live in a world full of distractions and challenges, but true peace is not in distance from reality, but in learning to live in it with serenity. When we deeply connect with our spiritual essence, with our inner truth, we begin to live with a sense of purpose, more clear, and with an unshakable trust in the process of life. The inside transformation we seek doesn't depend on changing the world around us, but changing how we realize and react to this world. As the French philosopher René Descartes said, "I'm not the one who adapts to the world, but the world is that adapts to me." When we change internally, the world around us changes too. We begin to see situations differently, to deal with the challenges more balanced, and to realize that the peace we seek is, in fact, within ourselves. Now, I go back to that initial reflection. Imagine that instead of being shaken by everything that happens around you, you could live with an imperturbable calm. Imagine that even before the greatest challenges, you were able to maintain serenity and trust. How would this life be? The secret is to understand that the key to this peace is not outside us, but in our own mind and heart. Every small step we take to cultivate this inner peace is a step towards a more full and more connected life. Over this video, we explore as near-death experiences, like Jacobo Grinberg's, and spiritual teachings can guide us to this internal transformation. Now, it's up to you to take the next step on this journey. How can you apply these teachings in your life? What small changes can you make to start connecting with your true essence and live with more peace and serenity? If you felt that this content has something to add to your life, don't stop signing up in the canal. Leave a like, comment, and share with those you know can also benefit from that reflection. We are together on this journey of self-knowledge, and with every new step, we approach the true peace that lies within us all.